You ever get that gut feeling that life's about to take a sharp left turn, and you're the only one who didn't get the memo? Yeah, that was me on the Thursday night it all began. Monica, my wife of 12 years, was standing in front of the hallway mirror, putting on perfume like she was about to audition for the role of woman with secrets in a daytime soap. I was sitting on the couch, still in my work clothes, sipping lukewarm coffee, watching her with the kind of curiosity you reserve for a neighbor mowing the lawn in a thunderstorm. "You're going out?" I asked casually, though my eyes had already clocked the new dress, the new heels, and the fact she'd used the red lipstick she once swore made her look too much. "Girls' night," she said, without looking at me. "Just a little dinner, you know. You don't have to wait up." Now, the thing about Monica was that she could say the most ordinary sentence and still make it sound like she'd just stolen something. And I'd been married to her long enough to recognize when the words didn't fit the tone. So I smiled and said, "Sounds fun." "Tell Beth I said hi." Her hand froze on the lipstick tube. Barely a twitch, but I caught it. "Beth?" she echoed, feigning confusion. "Yeah, you said you were going out with Beth, right?" She cleared her throat, glanced down at her phone like it held the script she'd forgotten. "Right, Beth." That was when I knew. See, Monica wasn't a great liar. She was a confident one, which is worse. Confidence covers cracks for a while, but eventually, the paint peels. I leaned back, pretending not to notice. "Bring me back one of those lemon tarts from the Italian place. You know the one." She forced a smile, kissed me on the cheek, and left with a swirl of perfume and a promise of don't stay up too late. And as soon as the door shut, I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. "Hey, Carter," I said when he answered. "You still do that thing with tracking phone numbers?" There was a pause, then a low chuckle. "Adam, my man. I knew you'd call me someday. Who we looking for?" I glanced at the closed door, still smelling the trail of her perfume. "My wife," I said, because I wasn't about to sit around like some oblivious sitcom husband while she rewrote the rules of our marriage. And that's where the real story began. By the time Monica's taillights disappeared down the street, Carter had already texted me a link. "Install this. Real-time location sharing. Totally legal, if she gave consent," he added with a winking emoji. "Yeah," I muttered, clicking download. "Consent's implied when you share a Netflix password, right?" He laughed. "Keep telling yourself that." So, while Monica was out supposedly eating pasta with Beth, I was watching a little blue dot on my phone move across town. And here's the thing. Beth lives in the suburbs. But Monica's dot? That thing zipped straight downtown, right into the parking lot of the Silver Fox. Now, if you're not familiar with the Silver Fox, let me educate you. It's not a restaurant, not a wine bar. It's a hotel. A very adult, very by-the-hour type of establishment, known mostly for its generous supply of blackout curtains and a front desk clerk who doesn't care if you check in under the name Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I stared at the screen, my coffee going cold in my hand. The little dot blinked, stopped moving, and stayed there. My first instinct: drive down there, bust the door open, get myself arrested in the name of marital justice. But then another thought hit me. Why play the hot-headed fool when I could play the patient chess master? So instead, I stayed right where I was. I made myself another cup of coffee. I even flipped on the ball game. Because when she walked back through that front door, smiling like the world was still spinning normally, I wanted to see just how far she'd go with the act. Around 11:45, the door finally opened. Monica breezed in, hair a little out of place, cheeks flushed like she'd been laughing all night. "How was Beth?" I asked casually, not looking up from the TV. She dropped her purse on the counter. "Good. You know Beth never stops talking." "Yeah," I said. "She's still living in Brookfield?" She blinked. Just a second too long. "Of course." I nodded slowly, keeping my eyes on the game. "Funny," I said, "because her car wasn't at her place tonight." Silence. Then Monica laughed. Too loud, too forced. "Adam, since when do you know what Beth drives?" I finally looked at her. Smiled, calm as can be. "Since I started paying attention." Her face faltered just slightly. Not enough for her to admit anything, but enough for me to know my quiet little war had just begun. And I wasn't planning on losing. The next morning, Monica was all sunshine and small talk, like nothing had happened. She poured me coffee, kissed me on the cheek, and asked if I wanted pancakes. I almost laughed. Pancakes, like maple syrup, could sweeten betrayal. I smiled back. "Sure, make them how Beth likes them." Her hand froze mid-stir with the whisk. Just for a second, Then she plastered on a grin. Funny. Yeah. Hilarious. I wasn't about to storm into accusations. No. I wanted her comfortable. Comfortable people get sloppy. And sloppy people get caught. So while she hummed in the kitchen, I texted Carter. Me. I need eyes on her tonight. Carter. Physical or digital? Me. Both. By noon, I had cameras ordered. Tiny ones, the kind you can hide inside a picture frame. And Carter was already digging through her phone records like a man panning for gold. That night, Monica announced she was heading to yoga with the girls. She even held up a gym bag like it was Exhibit A in a courtroom. Sounds healthy, I said, grabbing my keys. Where are you going? She asked. Just a drive. Clear my head. She nodded, lips twitching into a smile, probably thinking she'd bought herself another guilt-free night. Meanwhile, I tailed her. Not too close, not too far. Like a detective in some noir film, except instead of a trench coat, I was wearing yesterday's work shirt. She didn't go anywhere near a yoga studio. Instead, she pulled into a little restaurant on the edge of downtown. Low lights, candlelit windows. The kind of place you don't take your husband unless you're trying to apologize for 10 years of neglect, which clearly wasn't the mission tonight. I parked half a block away, watched her through the windshield as she slid into a booth. 5 minutes later, he showed up. Tall, smug, and with the kind of haircut that screams, I think I'm better than you. He leaned across the table. She laughed, that fake laugh I hadn't heard since our second anniversary, the one that means she's trying too hard. I sat there gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. But I didn't storm in. I didn't confront. I didn't give her the satisfaction of drama. Instead, I snapped a few photos on my phone. Proof. The first move in a much bigger game. Later that night, when she walked in and said, "Traffic was awful," I smiled and kissed her cheek. "Yeah," I said softly. "Looked like it." The look she gave me, brief, suspicious, calculating, told me I'd just planted the first seed of panic. And that, my friend, was exactly what I wanted. The morning after my little stakeout, Monica moved around the kitchen like a woman in a commercial, humming, flipping eggs, pouring orange juice into glasses we hadn't used since Christmas. It would have looked idyllic, if not for the tension woven so tight into the air you could strum it like a guitar string. I sat at the table, watching her like a man studying a painting for hidden brush strokes. She didn't meet my eyes. Not once. "You're up early," I said, sipping my coffee. "Couldn't sleep," she replied, a little too quickly. "Funny," I said, setting the cup down. "You didn't toss or turn." Her hand jerked slightly as she set a plate in front of me. "Guess I was just thinking about Beth." That landed like a dart. She froze, spatula still in hand, then forced a smile. "You're really hung up on Beth, aren't you?" "Just trying to picture her face," I said casually. "Since you've been seeing so much of her lately." She laughed, that hollow, performative kind of laugh people do when they're covering panic. "Adam, you're being paranoid. It was yoga. You know, yoga mats, downward dog, the whole thing." "Of course," I said, cutting into the eggs. "It's just funny you came home smelling like garlic bread." That was the moment she slipped. Just for a second, her eyes went wide before she caught herself. "We grabbed a bite after class. You know how girls are." I nodded slowly. "Sure. The thing about Monica? She thought she was smarter than me. Always had. And for years, maybe she was. Not because she was clever, but because I trusted her. Trust is the best camouflage a liar can wear. But now, with that trust gone, her every move was like watching a magician after you've learned the trick. That evening, Carter called. "She's careful," he said, "but not careful enough." Phone records show a lot of late-night calls to a number saved as Laura from PDA. Spoiler alert, it's not Laura. "Who is it?" He paused. "Name's Ryan. Divorced. Works in finance. 2 kids he doesn't have custody of. The kind of guy who thinks cufflinks make him James Bond." "Ryan." I repeated, letting the name roll off my tongue like poison. "Want me to dig deeper?" "Not yet," I said. "Let her think she's safe. People in hiding always make mistakes when they think they're invisible." The following weekend, Monica suggested we take a drive to the lake. "Romantic," she said. "A little time for just us." I almost laughed in her face, but instead, I agreed. We drove out, windows down, music playing like we were still in our 20s. She rested her hand on my arm, smiling, but I could feel the tremor in her fingers. "Guilt is a lousy passenger." "Halfway there," she said. "You've been quiet lately." I shrugged. Just thinking. About what? About how funny life is, I said. How you can live with someone for 12 years and still not know who they really are. She flinched. Barely. But I saw it. Adam, she said softly. If there's something on your mind, you should just say it. I turned and met her eyes. You first. Her lips parted, like she was about to confess something. Then her phone buzzed. She snatched it up so fast you'd think it was about to explode. She glanced at the screen, face tightening, then shoved it back into her purse. Wrong number, she muttered. Of course, I said. At the lake, she leaned into me, snapping selfies, trying to capture some image of a happy couple. I played along, smiled on cue. But behind my sunglasses, my eyes never left hers. I wanted her to wonder how much I knew. I wanted her to sweat. That night, when she was in the shower, I picked up her phone. Face ID didn't work on me. I wasn't the chosen one anymore. But Carter had sent me a little gadget that could unlock it in under a minute. And there it was. Text from Ryan. Can't stop thinking about you. Last night was incredible. He suspects anything? You're worth the risk. I read them all, calm as a monk. No fury. No tears. Just a cold, steady awareness settling in like a second skin. When she came out wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, I was sitting on the edge of the bed with her phone in my hand. She froze. Adam, what are you doing with my phone? I held it up. Just checking the weather. Her eyes darted to the screen. Panic flickered. Then she laughed, shaking her head. You're ridiculous. Yeah, I said softly. Ridiculous. I set the phone down, kissed her on the forehead, and turned off the lamp. She lay stiff beside me, probably thinking the storm had passed. But I was already building the thundercloud. The next week, I made small adjustments. Quiet ones. I moved a little money out of our joint account. I met with a lawyer under the guise of a business lunch. I changed the passwords on the streaming services just to watch her squirm. Small cracks, little inconveniences, nothing she could prove was deliberate. One night, she snapped. Adam, she said, standing in the kitchen with her arms crossed. What's going on with you? You're different. I looked up from my coffee, smiled faintly. Maybe I just started paying attention. Paying attention to what? To the way you get texts at midnight, I said calmly. To the perfume you never wore for me. To the fact that Beth suddenly forgot how to spell her own name when you typed it last week. Her face drained of color. You're spying on me? Spying? I raised an eyebrow. No, just noticing. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time in years, she had no quick retort. Just silence. And in that silence, I smiled. Because that was the moment I knew I had her exactly where I wanted her. There's a certain peace that comes when you stop chasing the truth and start leading it around on a leash. That's where I was with Monica. I didn't need to guess anymore. I knew. And knowing changes everything. She still played her part, of course. She tried extra hard now. Kissing me good morning, asking about my day, even cooking my favorite meals. If you didn't know better, you'd think I had the perfect wife. But here's the thing. Guilt makes people act generous. Love makes them act sincere. I wasn't getting love. I was getting discounts at a store I didn't want to shop at anymore. Carter kept feeding me information like a steady drip of caffeine. Phone records, hotel receipts, even a photo of Ryan and Monica getting a little too close in the parking garage at the Silver Fox. Ryan looked like the kind of guy who ironed his jeans. Monica looked like she was auditioning for a role in a bad romance film. One evening, Carter called while I was in the garage. You sitting down? He asked. Why? You finally learned how to play piano. Funny. No. Listen, our boy Ryan just booked a weekend trip. Cabin on Lake Greenwood. Guess who's listed as his guest? I didn't even need to answer. Want me to blow it up? Carter asked. No, I said. Let her go. Let her think she's pulling this off. She's not ready to see the knife yet. Man, you're colder than a banker in a foreclosure meeting, he chuckled. I'm patient, I corrected. That night, Monica came into the bedroom holding 2 wine glasses. She set one down on my nightstand, leaned against the bed frame, and smiled like a woman who hadn't been sneaking around with Mr. Cufflinks all week. Thought you could use this, she said. I took the glass, swirled it, and asked, What's the occasion? She shrugged. Just us. Us. I almost laughed. But I clinked my glass against hers anyway. You're awfully thoughtful lately, I said. Maybe I realized I've been neglecting you, she replied. Neglect, I echoed. That's a strong word. Her eyes flickered. You know what I mean. Yeah, I said, sipping the wine. I do. She looked at me for a long second, like she was trying to read whether I knew. The problem for her was that I wasn't giving her anything. My face was a blank wall, and that, more than any accusation, terrified her. The next morning, I set the first part of my plan into motion. "Hey," I said casually over breakfast. "I got a work trip coming up. Out of town for a couple nights." She froze mid-bite of her toast. "Oh, when?" "Next weekend." "That's short notice." "Yeah, boss just sprung it on me." She smiled too quickly. "Well, I'll have some me time then." "Exactly," I said, sipping my coffee. What I didn't tell her was that there was no work trip. What there was, however, was a little test. A chess move. Because I knew she'd take that opening and run straight into Ryan's arms. Sure enough, Carter called me 3 days later. She booked a hair appointment. Mani Petty. Even bought lingerie off a site that delivers overnight. Efficient, I said dryly. "Want me to follow her up to the cabin?" "No need," I said. "I already know where she'll be. Just make sure the cameras are ready." Saturday morning, I kissed her goodbye, suitcase in hand, and drove exactly 3 miles before circling back and parking behind a line of trees down the street. From there, I watched as Monica, my wife, emerged from the house with a duffel bag big enough for a weekend of betrayal. She slid into her car, checked her hair in the mirror, and drove off like she was headed to a spa retreat. Carter texted me updates the whole way. "Carter, they just checked in." "Carter, cabin 12. Lakeview." "Carter, he brought champagne." Real subtle. I spent the night at Carter's place, eating pizza and watching the game. We didn't even need to talk about what she was doing. The silence was more powerful than any words. Sunday evening, I returned home just before she did. I even made sure the suitcase was by the door so my story held up. When she walked in, her hair tousled and her smile just a little too forced, I greeted her with a kiss on the cheek. "How was it?" she asked sweetly. "Productive," I said. "You?" "Oh, laundry. Netflix. The usual." I smiled. "Sounds relaxing." She smiled back, relieved, thinking the storm had passed. That's the thing about storms. They don't pass. They circle. The next day, I dropped my first breadcrumb. Over breakfast, I said, "Funny thing happened at the cabin this weekend." Her fork froze. "Cabin?" "Yeah. Some coworkers stayed at a place by Lake Greenwood last month. Said it was great. Cabin 12, I think." Her eyes snapped to mine, wide for just a second before she forced a laugh. "What a coincidence." "Yeah," I said, sipping my coffee. "What a coincidence." She didn't eat another bite. That night, I left a printout on her vanity. Just a screenshot of her texts with Ryan. Nothing explicit, just enough to rattle her. I didn't sign it. Didn't say a word. Just left it where she'd find it. The next morning, she was pale, quiet, and jumpy. "You okay?" I asked, feigning concern. "Fine," she muttered. By evening, she'd called 3 of her girlfriends, all under the guise of catching up. Carter recorded every word. She was panicking, trying to figure out who knew what, if Ryan's wife was involved, if someone was following her. I kept smiling, kept acting normal, because the beauty of revenge isn't the moment they get caught. It's the long, slow unraveling that comes when they realize they're not in control anymore. And Monica? She was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. That night, when she crawled into bed and whispered, "Adam, I love you," I kissed her forehead and whispered back, "I know." But in my mind, I was already setting up the final move. And she had no idea the checkmate was coming. If guilt was a storm cloud, Monica carried it over her head like a crown. The next week, she couldn't sit still. She hovered in the kitchen, scrolled her phone nervously, started conversations she didn't finish. It was like living with someone who kept hearing whispers in a room where I couldn't. And I'll admit, I enjoyed the silence between us more than any words we could have exchanged. Tuesday morning, I planted another seed. I slipped a manila envelope onto the passenger seat of her car before she left for work. Inside, a few photographs Carter had taken, grainy, but clear enough. Monica stepping into cabin 12, Ryan's arm slung over her shoulder like he'd won a prize. I didn't sign it, didn't say a word. That evening, she came home pale as a ghost, tossed her purse onto the counter, and went straight for a glass of wine. "Long day?" I asked casually from the couch. She nodded, not looking at me. "Exhausting. Anything interesting happen?" She shook her head too fast. "No, just work." I set my book down. "Good. Nothing worse than secrets popping up when you're already tired." She froze with the glass halfway to her lips, then forced a laugh. What kind of secrets? I smiled. You'd know better than me. She didn't touch her wine after that. By Thursday, she was spiraling. I'd catch her staring into the distance, lips moving slightly like she was rehearsing excuses. She checked her phone constantly, and every time it buzzed, she jumped like a soldier hearing gunfire. I decided it was time for phase 2. Friday night, I announced. We should host a little dinner next week. Invite a few friends. Been too long since we entertained. Her face drained of color. Next week. Yeah, Wednesday works. I'll call Carter, maybe your friend Beth. Who else should we invite? She hesitated. Maybe not Beth. She's busy. Shame, I said with a faint smile. Guess I'll just surprise you. I knew she'd spend the entire week terrified Ryan might show up or that one of our friends had seen the photos. That was the point. On Monday, Carter texted me. Carter, Ryan's blowing up her phone. Wants to know if she's told you. She hasn't answered in hours. Me? Good. Let him sweat too. That night, Monica climbed into bed and whispered, Adam, you know I love you, right? I looked at her in the dark, her eyes glossy and desperate. Of course, I said softly. Always have. She smiled faintly, relief flickering across her face. The kind of relief you feel when you think the executioner might have lost his keys. Tuesday morning, I left a second envelope on her nightstand. This one had no photos, no texts. Just a single piece of paper with 4 words typed neatly in the center. Dinner. Wednesday. Be ready. She didn't mention it. Not a word. But I watched her pace the kitchen that night like she was waiting for a verdict. When Wednesday finally rolled around, I came home early. She'd already set the table. Candles, wine glasses, her best silverware. She was dressed to the nines, hair perfect, makeup flawless. If I didn't know better, I'd think we were celebrating an anniversary. You look beautiful, I said. She smiled, tight and nervous. Who's coming? You'll see. We sat down, just the two of us at first. She picked at her salad, glancing at the door every 30 seconds. I let the silence stretch. Finally, I said, funny, isn't it? How sometimes the people we expect never show up. Her fork clattered against the plate. What are you talking about? I leaned back in my chair, calm as a priest at confession. I mean, for all that planning, sometimes it's just you and me in the end. She swallowed hard, her face pale. Adam, she whispered, if you know something, you should just say it. I smiled faintly. Oh, I know plenty. The question is, what do you want to say? Her lips trembled. She looked at me like a cornered animal, searching for an exit that wasn't there. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. She jumped up, snatched it, and nearly dropped it when she saw the name. Ryan. Her eyes darted to me, then back to the phone. She silenced it, slipped it into her purse, and turned with a forced smile. Just work. I tilted my head. Work calls you at 9 o'clock at night. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. Her hands were trembling so badly I thought she might drop her wine glass. Relax, I said softly. Dinner's supposed to be enjoyable. Her eyes narrowed. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I took a slow sip of wine. Immensely. The truth is, I'd never felt calmer in my life. For years, I'd been the one trying, holding us together, ignoring the little red flags, giving her the benefit of the doubt. And now, the roles had reversed. She was the one scrambling. I was the one watching. She finally snapped. Fine, she hissed. Maybe I've been talking to someone. But it's not what you think. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Because what I think is that you've been sneaking off to hotels and cabins with a man who signs his texts with hearts. Her mouth fell open. You went through my phone? I leaned forward. No, I went through our marriage. And guess what I found? She didn't answer. Couldn't. I stood, picked up my glass, and smiled. Dinner was lovely, but I think I'll turn in early. She stared at me, stunned. That's it. You're just leaving me here. Why not? I said calmly. You've been leaving me for months. And with that, I walked upstairs, leaving her alone at a table set for a dinner she never got. That night, I lay in bed and listened to her pace the floor downstairs, phone buzzing every few minutes, muffled whispers I couldn't quite make out. But I didn't need to. I already knew. The trap wasn't fully shut yet, but the jaws were closing. And soon, Monica would learn the difference between living a lie and being crushed by the truth. The morning after our non-dinner, Monica acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted bacon. But her eyes were different, restless, darting, calculating. She was a gambler who knew the house was watching her every move. I let her play, smiled when she smiled, answered her questions with the same calm tone I'd used when I coached debate in high school. And then I dropped another breadcrumb. You'll need to dress nice Friday night, I said casually, buttering toast. Her fork froze. Why? Little surprise, I replied. You'll see. All week, she fidgeted. She started wearing more makeup, deleted messages off her phone the second they came in, and pretended to scroll social media when her screen was as blank as her excuses. Friday came. She dressed like it was prom night, but her hands shook as she zipped her dress. We drove in silence. Instead of the restaurant she was expecting, I pulled into the country club. She frowned. Adam, what is this? Charity gala, I said smoothly. I figured you'd enjoy it. Her face drained as we walked in, because sitting at the bar, in full view, was Ryan. Alone. Waiting. She gripped my arm. Adam, please, we don't have to. Oh, relax, I said. Just be yourself. The whole night, I kept her close. Ryan tried to make eye contact, but I never acknowledged him. She, meanwhile, looked like a cat in a bathtub, trying to smile while silently screaming. And that, my friend, was the sweetest wine I ever drank. By Sunday, Monica cracked. We were sitting on the patio when she blurted, Adam, I need to tell you something. I folded my paper. Go on. She hesitated, biting her lip. Then she tried the soft-serve version of the truth. I've been unhappy. I may have leaned on a friend too much, but it didn't mean anything. I sipped my coffee. Cabin 12 didn't mean anything? Her face went white. You followed me? Didn't have to, I said calmly. You left a trail wider than a 4-lane highway. She burst into tears. Or at least, she tried to. Thing was, I'd seen real tears before. These were crocodiles. Adam, please, I'll stop. It was a mistake. A stupid mistake. I leaned back, studying her. Funny, you didn't look stupid in those photos. You looked happy. Her jaw dropped. Photos. I smiled faintly. Don't worry. Only Carter and I have seen them. So far. The color drained from her face. She realized, finally, that the leash was around her neck. And I was holding it. For the next 2 weeks, Monica turned into a step-forward wife. Dinners on the table by 6. Compliments about how handsome I looked in shirts she hadn't noticed in years. Even suggested a weekend trip, just us. I agreed. Packed the car. Smiled while she played the doting wife. But inside, I was already tightening the final knot. See, what she didn't know was that I'd been moving pieces quietly. Money shifted into an account under my name only. The house, refinanced in my name after a clerical error, she signed without reading. Carter had drafted every document, every clause. And the best part? Ryan thought she was leaving me. She'd promised him soon. I knew because Carter intercepted the texts. So while she thought she was building a new life, I'd already closed the door behind her. On a Tuesday morning, I dropped the final envelope onto the kitchen table. Inside was divorce paperwork, already signed on my side, along with photos, messages, and a note in my handwriting. I don't need revenge. I already won. The house, the accounts, the car, all mine. You? You get Ryan. Congratulations. I left it there. Went to work. Waited. When I came home that evening, the house was eerily quiet. The envelope was gone. So was Monica. I walked through each room, calm as a man returning from vacation. No screaming, no confrontation. Just silence. An hour later, Carter called. She's at Ryan's place. Packed fast. Looks rough. I chuckled. Let her have him. And here's the twist no one saw coming. Not her, not Ryan, not even Carter. 2 days later, Ryan called me. Not Monica. Me. Adam, he said, voice shaking. She's too much. She's clingy, paranoid, keeps asking if I've been talking to you. I don't know what she told you, but I can't. I laughed. Good luck, Ryan. Then I hung up. See, the cruelest revenge isn't fire or fury. It's gifting someone exactly what they thought they wanted. I didn't ruin Monica's life. I just handed her the keys to the cage she built herself. Now she's with Ryan, the man who thought he was stealing her away. And me? I'm free. House, money, peace of mind, all mine. And every time she looks at Ryan, wondering if she made the right choice, she'll remember cabin 12, the photos, the envelope, the silence. Because the truth is, I never needed to destroy her. I just needed to let her live with herself. Checkmate.